Pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Nick Noorani. He's the President and CEO of Destination Canada Information Inc. He was born in Mumbai, India, and came to Canada in 1998. He's co-authored a book called Arrival, Survival Canada, and then transformed that book into a monthly magazine called Canadian Immigrant, which was Canada's first national immigrant magazine. He was also a host of a radio show called Ask Nick, which was hosted on Radio Canada. And in 2010, he launched Destination Canada. It's a company that's dedicated to helping international students and immigrants before they arrive in Canada. And just recently, this year, he was awarded the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal for his work in the community. So, Nick, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure being here. The last time I was here was in December 2009. Doesn't look like the same place. It's a pleasure being here. Brett, thank you for inviting me. As Brett said, my life is about helping immigrants, and that's what I've been doing for the past 14 years. Now, as the recent report said, and I'm going to quickly move to, sorry, what am I doing? Okay. Brett, how do I go back? Okay. Sorry, technology and me just don't get along. As your recent report, A Chance for a Better Life, states, there is a looming labor shortage, and that's why we're here. And of course, there are immigrants who are here and wanting to get jobs. I'm going to tell you 3 stories today. The first one is mine. I came from a background of advertising and marketing, working with ad agencies like McCann Erickson and Saatchi, Foot Cone Belding and Gray Worldwide, handling small brands like Coca-Cola and BMW. And before I came to Canada, I owned the largest call center in the Middle East. Some of our clients were Citibank, Howard Johnson, Renaissance Hotels, etc. And so I come to Canada, and guess what my first job was? Telemarketer. Sitting exactly where hundreds of people I had trained, and that's what I started off as, $8 an hour. Of course, I took the job, but I was devastated, disheartened, depressed, and disappointed. And I think that's probably the trajectory most immigrants go through in their first few months in Canada. And then I started thinking, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I've got excellent language skills. I'm a skilled professional. I've worked with some of the world's largest corporations. Am I alone in this? Or are there other people who are going through the same issue? And so that became what I wanted to find. Is it because I have a funny accent, or is it because I have a funny name? And so my first job I go for, my name is not Nick. My name is Naeem. So the first job I go for, the guy picks up my resume and says, nah. How do you pronounce your name? What is your nickname? And that is how I got my nickname. So I'm serious. I have a wacky sense of humor. That's exactly how I got it. And so it took me a couple of years to find my way in the Canadian corporate world, and eventually I had to resort to entrepreneurship to reach some of the goals I wanted through my books, my magazine, speaking series, and websites. And now I'm using these platforms as a way of helping immigrants coming into the country. So my work is on 3 levels. The first level is speaking to immigrants. I speak to literally thousands of immigrants a year. I don't believe there's a single month that goes past without me speaking to groups where there are 100 people, 200 people, and I talk to them. I talk to immigrants about success. And I come from the school of hard love, so I tell them the blunt stuff because I can. They'll take it from me. So I tell them, you need to wisen up. You need to improve your skills. And I think some of the things that frustrate me is when highly skilled immigrants come here and figure that in order to get Canadian experience, they're going to get more education. They don't need it. So, why bring immigrants into Canada and set them up to fail? Every time there is, sorry, I should be close to the mic. Every time an immigrant comes in here, let's say a skilled engineer, and ends up driving a cab, 3 people get affected. The source country, for whom that person was a contributing member of society, taxpayer. Canada, because we don't get the kind of taxes that we wanted. And lastly, what about the human issue? We miss out on that. And I'm going to talk to you about the 3 imperatives. The 3 imperatives that we need to have to help immigrants come in. Again, your Bow Valley report noted that most employers involved in this study were actually eager to hire immigrants and considered them to be reliable and effective workers. Then why are immigrants not employed? Lady in the audience asked the elephant in the room question. Said, we're talking about temporary workers and coming in, and what about the immigrants who are here and who are not getting jobs? I got a chance to speak with Vanessa in the break. And I said, Vanessa, great report. So what happens now? What do we do with this great report? It's great stuff. There may be some new things that we've all learned through the report. But one common theme we found, immigrants do want jobs. That's why we come to Canada. But before we move on to the focus on my speech, which is the 6 win-win strategies for hiring, retaining, and leveraging immigrants, I want to take a look at some of the imperatives. What are the imperatives that we need to focus on before we start looking at how do we do it? 1, the demographics demand it. It's no secret. I'm not even going to bother with that, with that page that talks about the demographics. We all know it. Okay? Yet, the irony is immigrants still face very high barriers to get into their fields. And so we're suffering demographically. And this transition penalty, as some of the stakeholders talk about, is a bit too high to pay. Let's take the example of an electrician from the UK, certified in London. Before coming to Alberta, as an immigrant, as a federally skilled worker, he used to come here and work in Alberta and do work for companies in Calgary and Edmonton. And so he decided, I'm going to come here. The bloke didn't settle for what would happen next. He has to retrain. And with a family of 4, how the heck are you going to start retraining when you need to put food on the table? So what does he do? This same man who came and executed projects for a company in England, okay, is now a handyman. Wow. What a phenomenal loss. We are losing out on a talent pool that's being handed to us on a silver platter. Again, just one example and why we can't ignore this demographic anymore. Business, stock business. Immigrants are a large part of Canadian companies' clients. The banks are spending millions of dollars in trying to attract immigrants to their bank versus the other bank around the street. Why? There's money in there. And then, yeah, you have the statistics. By 2013, immigrants will represent 21% of Canada's population. So, let's talk about story 2. This is a young couple I met. The lady came from China, and the guy came from Germany. 2 skilled workers. They didn't know each other. They enrolled in a BCIT program on international trade. Cupid struck. They got married. Now, fast forward to when they're finishing their course, and you have campus recruitment. One BC company, that tiny little company that did flooring said, you know, I want to hire both husband and wife. Here's what happened. The machinery came from China and, the machinery came from Germany and the products were sold into China. What does that mean? That company is no longer a tiny little company. They are forced to be reckoned with. Business case. We are in a global economy, and we need to start getting employers to start thinking about global economy. Companies want to start figuring out ways in which, and thanks to the downturn in the economy, where our largest trading partner did not really want to buy much products from us. So we had to, for force, start looking at other places to sell product. And who better to tell you about international trends, opportunities, and doing business than from people with international experience. My third story. An engineer who came from India called me up and said, I've landed in Vancouver, but I am heading off to Nanaimo. The story is 6 years old, and it has a happy ending. I said, Nanaimo, that's interesting. 6 years ago, there was no outreach. Companies didn't really, municipalities didn't really want to go out and promote themselves. I said, what are you doing there? He said, well, I figured it's going to take too long for me to retrain. And I bought a Subway franchise in Nanaimo. Interesting. Can I have a cup of coffee with you? Sure. Sat with him, and he was thrilled. He says, I've gone and checked it out. It's a reputable place. I'm very happy. Okay, so I kept in touch because for me, these are the kind of people who feed my knowledge base. So here's what happened in year 2. Second franchise bought. Year 3, third franchise bought. Each franchise, let's do the math, 3 people hired per franchise. Typically 3 to 4 people, maybe 2 shifts. The economy benefits. Again, he started using the skills he had as an engineer in developing a new business. He's happy. He says, Nanaimo is a great place. My kids are not exposed to a whole lot of things that we don't want them to be exposed to. They walk to the Gurdwara. They walk to school. And whenever we want to do any heavy-duty shopping, we come to Surrey. So, these 3 stories were told specifically so you understand that there's an opportunity over here that goes beyond just jobs. And then let's talk about the immigrant work ethic. I'm going to quote here from Vanessa's report. We have 11 foreign workers. None have missed time or arrived late in 5 years. Wow. That is amazing. That's the immigrant work ethic.